Joining me now in studio is the Agriculture Minister, Barnaby Joyce. Barnaby Joyce, thanks so much for coming in tonight.
I had nothing else on.
Oh, great, thank you. I'm glad we feel wanted. I will start with the budget,
yes.
Of course. It's been a 6-week break. What is your electorate saying to you? What are their biggest concerns?
Well, my job really is to explain to them how we've got to turn the financial show around. They understand that there are certain things that they're going to be unhappy about, and it'd be peculiar if you weren't. You know, if you're losing money in some areas, of course that's going to make you less than pleasant for a time. But they understand that if we don't turn the finances of the nation around, we're going to go down the tube. Even tonight, if you looked on AOFM, we're at $330 billion on our overdraft, and this is an incredible amount of money, vastly more, 3 times more than we've ever had on the overdraft after previous governments. And this is by reason of what Labor left us, this crazy trajectory of debt. And we've got to try and turn it around. And I've been talking about this since 2009.
Yeah, you have. I was just about to say that. You have been quite consistent on this message. But the message that's coming from the public about this budget is its unfairness. Now, people in regional areas, they're not flush with cash all the time. Farmers going through a tough time at the moment. Is that the message you're getting, that there isn't equity in this budget? They feel a bit duped by it.
No, they understand that there's going to be some pain. You just can't have a budget.
Yeah, I'm sure they understand it, but do they believe that they're doing perhaps more of the heavy lifting than they should?
Well, they want to make sure that we do other things that count. Get the live cattle trade going, get the live sheep trade going, get a fair price back through the farm gate for the record amounts of beef that they're selling. That if we can keep the economy ticking along, then more money comes in. Look after them when they're in drought. These are the sort of things that people are talking about. And yes, of course, they do understand that in certain instances, by reason of being in a regional area, it's going to hurt more than others. And I accept that. My job is to explain it. My job is to clearly say, if we don't turn this thing around now, it's like I was saying today, and I can see it leading the news.
Yeah, the melanoma, it certainly has caused a few waves today. But
I'm back home.
Where should the government compromise, though? Because we've been talking about compromise a lot as well. You know, every day the government's saying it is willing to compromise, negotiate with the crossbench, calm, methodical. But where is it? Where are the results? And what are you willing to compromise on?
You got to. It's like I keep on talking in metaphors, don't I? It sounds. I feel almost like a parable. But it's. If you don't, you've got to have a roof that keeps out the rain. You've got to have a budget that actually turns things around. You can't compromise so much that it loses its efficacy. It loses its capacity to do the #1 job that we've got to do on behalf of the nation, which is get our financial affairs back on the rails. Now, the vast majority of the budget, I acknowledge, has been through, but we've still got sort of structural issues there.
Big structural issues.
That we've got to deal with. And I find that people only start listening to you when you tell them the end story. You say, well, if you don't, and this is why I use the metaphor of the financial melanoma, you look small, it looks innocuous, you say, look, I'm still walking around, everything's fine. You say, well, if you don't deal with that problem, it's really going to cause massive problems later on. And the massive problems that financially we will incur is we will lose our capacity to finance all those vital services, whether they're pensions, whether it's the Defence Force, whether it's your pharmaceutical benefits scheme, you know, whether it's the ABC. Maybe you'd be quite happy to see the end of the ABC. But would you?
No.
Oh, that's very noble of you. But no, I don't want to see the end of it either. And he'd say, but that's where you're going to arrive down the track. Unless you do something now.
But let's look at the reality of some of the budget measures. The Medicare co-payment, should it come down? Should pensioners be exempt? Should people in your electorate that are doing it tough, that you've painted this picture of so many times, that can't afford to put food on the table, if they get sick, they can't afford to pay this $7.
Yeah, well, I'm going to leave that to Dutto to do the negotiations there, and he is, and it's Peter Dutton, let's give him his full name. Peter Dutton will do the negotiations with the senators. Now, even the AMA has come back with another proposal, so everybody sort of agrees with the direction, and now they're discussing where this thing lands. And I think that's generally what happens with budget. Ultimately, reasonable people say, okay, what are you trying to achieve? And we'll try and negotiate to that outcome. And Peter Dutton's as capable as any in fact, very capable, and I'm sure that he will come to a conclusion and some result.
But there should be exemptions, though, you think?
Well, I'll leave that to Peter Dutton rather than me because I'd only be just making them up here on the spot. I really don't know.
Yeah, but you've just come back from a 6-week break.
Yeah.
You've got to sell this measure to your constituents.
Yeah.
Have they conveyed to you that they're worried about the Medicare co-payment, and what message are you taking back therefore to Peter Dutton?
Anywhere where there's going to be a cut, people come into your office and are concerned about it, and that's what you would expect. That's where you get paid the dollars to be a politician. Your job, or my job, is to try and explain it to them as to why. That is, we've got to turn the finances of the nation around. They agree with that, and therefore you say to them, well, if it's not that, then it's just somewhere else that we have to go. And I suppose in that negotiation process, which Peter Dutton is now in, I'll leave it up to him to find out what he does.
It seems to be stalemate at the moment, Barnaby. We've been hearing this message for 6 weeks, if not longer. Do you at least agree that the government cannot go through this next sitting fortnight without putting a run on the board, without getting a parliamentary win?
Well, I think we do get runs on the board. I mean, I can think of the things I've got.
But with some of these key measures, you know, these signature policies in the budget.
Well, the appropriations bill, which is the budget, it's gone through.
It has.
And there are other things.
But there's a long list of things that haven't too.
Well, such as we've put a tax basically on the richest people, to the debt levy tax to try and bring these things have gone through. I even listened to Senator Madigan tonight, and he was talking about, well, he doesn't know whether he completely agrees with the fuel excise in its current form, but they're all, as these things happen, they're all starting to now come into a form of negotiation that brings an outcome. And I'm hope, not on behalf of the National Party or the Liberal Party or the Coalition, but on behalf of the nation, it's so terribly important that at this first opportunity we do turn the show around. And so, you know, where that lands, I'll leave it up to the respective ministers.
Okay, what about the University of New England, university deregulation? Are there concerns there?
Well, if we get the deregulation hasn't gone through, but I'm not as concerned because you'll get the sandstone unis, that your Sydney and Melbourne and University of Queensland, University of Tasmania, etc. If they choose to put their fees right up, well, of course, the regional universities will become vastly more competitive. And a lot of the students there, to be honest, are external students. So that's a bigger cash flow that actually ends up going to regional.
There's talk today, though, that the government might give a bit of a bonus to regional universities. What form do you think that might come in?
Well, we have to understand that a lot of students in regional areas don't have the benefit that you have in city areas where, obviously, if you live at Turramurra or you live at Leichhardt or you live at, I don't know, Paddington, you have the capacity to catch the train and go to university and then go home. In regional areas, accommodation, you have to actually live at the university, wherever it is, and so it's a higher cost. But that's why Christopher Pyne has a scholarship process in train, and these will have a great attention to regional places, so that a person at Quilpie or Barradine or, I don't know, Brewarrina can also get that opportunity to have for a tertiary education.
So you think there might be some help in terms of, you know, outside students, giving them some kind of help in a welfare sense with their accommodation or their travel costs?
Well, the scholarship process is part of Christopher Pyne's package, and in regional areas that will be of huge assistance.
Okay, the renewable energy target and looking at renewable energy in regional areas, what I've seen, it's usually a bit of a catalyst for fierce debate. Now, I know we are waiting for the renewable energy report, the review to be handed down, but again, what are your constituents saying about this? Should it be back to the real 20%? Should it stay at the 41,000 gigawatt hours?
Well, you know that 20%, we're actually, our renewable energy component now is vastly in excess of 20% because... About
27.
Yeah, because what they've actually locked in as a number, and I can't remember, it's
41,000 gigawatt hours.
Thank you very much. So that's very good. But so we actually are above 20% as we speak. The big thing that people in regional areas talk about is the price of power. I mean, that is a really key issue. And that's why we had to get rid of the carbon tax, which is now through, and trying to make sure that people on those essential parts of their life are not left in a diminished position.
So within the government, I'm feeling there is a strong movement of MPs, backbenchers, ministers that do want to see it go back to the so-called true 20%. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I haven't I really haven't gauged that from my colleagues. But if you ask me a straight question, I'll give you a straight answer. The issue that really touches is the power prices, because people just say, look, I can't believe this power bill.
And you believe renewable energy is pushing up power prices?
I want to find out exactly what factor renewable energy has in the price of power. And I've heard figures from 3%, which is really, it's of less of a concern. It's still a concern, but to up to 30%, which obviously is a big concern. Somewhere in between those two, Laura, lies the truth, and I want to find out where it is.
Okay, back to your portfolio area. Drought payments, have they all gone through? Yeah,
what we've got with, we've now got over 3,000 people who are getting the farm household allowance. That entitles them to between $900 and $1,000 a fortnight. We have around about 90 people now have got either concessional farm finance or the drought loan, one at 4%, one at 4.5%. I've made available $25 million for water infrastructure.
Is there any red tape with the states here that still remains a problem?
Yeah, there is a requirement for it to be more streamlined. I'm hearing that. We have Minister Payne, Marise Payne, she'll be going, I think, out to Longreach in the next couple of days to, or her department will, sorry, to see if there's further that we can do, and I commend Marise for how diligent she is in that part of her portfolio. We're always trying to do it better, Laura, but sometimes people have multiple structures, like they've got a partnership and a trust and a company, and you say to them, well, unfortunately, if you've got a partnership and a trust and a company, we have to do an application for a partnership, a trust and a company. But we're very mindful of this, and we're trying to make sure that we can do it better. We acknowledge our faults and we try to do it better, but there's a substantial amount of money now flowing out, and a substantial amount of loans that have been made available. I made an extra $20 million available for both Queensland and New South Wales to assist with the drought in the last fortnight.
Right. You are going to China in the next 2 weeks as well. We've seen a lot of reaction from Jackie Lambie and Clive Palmer's comments in the last week. How do you think it'll play out once you get there?
Well, I hope that, and I'm sure that the Chinese are sophisticated enough to know that statements by Senator Lambie are merely statements by Senator Lambie and not a reflection of the government. The same with Mr Palmer. Senator Lambie and Mr Palmer have every right to have their views, but I think there is a responsibility because of their office to be somewhat tempered in them, because they do affect how our nation goes. This is our major trading partner.
Could it affect the free trade agreement?
Look, if people took it as an insult, of course it can affect all sorts of things, and you don't want it to. You don't want, because that really affects the money that goes back onto the kitchen table for my farmers, and affects the money that comes back.
Have you had your counterpart convey any message to you, concern?
I'm going to be meeting him, Minister Hahn, and I've met Minister Gao over here, and I just want to make sure that we're talking business. We're talking about how we get a good product into China and how we get a good price back to the Australian farmer, and how there's more money on the kitchen table for people to get on with their life. And if I can do that, I'm doing my job. And, I hope that, and I'm sure she will, that Senator Lambie recognises the position comes with great responsibility as well as being an immense privilege.
This is a really interesting area, the Clive Palmer era. We had the Pauline Hanson era, which the Clive Palmer era has been compared to. There is, I guess, some that have said perhaps the government should get its measures through and then don't deal with Clive Palmer. Is that an option, or is that something that it's just a reality that you just have to deal with him? You have to sit down sensibly with him. Is there a way you could appeal to Ricky Muir and get him back from that alliance and start dealing with the crossbench in that way?
Well, I try to deal with all people in the Senate. I try as much as I can to negotiate with Joel Fitzgibbon when required. I think it's, we've got to be adults and try and make sure that we do the right thing by the nation. I had a short discussion just in the corridor with Christine, not with Christine Milne, but with the Greens, with Rachel Seward today about another issue, a disallowance motion. I try to make sure that, because I was in the Senate, that those colleagues who I went through the Senate with, I keep the negotiation channels open with them. And, if you're polite to people, politeness bounces back.
Okay. We'll see how that goes. One final question. I want to take you back quickly to 2009, the carbon tax.
Yes.
It's history now, but if the carbon tax would have passed, Brian Loughnane says today in The Australian, it would have been the worst crisis since Menzies.
That's correct.
Julie Bishop warned that if it did pass, it could have been the end of the Liberal Nats alliance.
Yep.
Was it that serious?
Yeah, it was. I had 40,000 emails saying that this was anathema to them. The vast majority were saying, and we voted Liberal, we were about to become a much bigger party, I think the National Party at that point in time. It was just that it went against the grain. You know, parties that believe in smaller government, that the individual knows best, that taxes are rarely a cure for anything, were unlikely to support a broad-based consumption tax, especially on an inelastic supply such as electricity, because you can't get away from it. You know, you can't go home tonight and decide to cook half of dinner, or you know, turn on half the light. You're stuck with the full price, and so it's a very cruel way to try and bring about what you're supposed to be an outcome. And of course, it didn't actually change the temperature of the globe. It just made people poorer. And it's still the policy of the Australian Labor Party. If they got back in, if they're going to keep their word, you'll get the carbon tax back.
There you go. Barnaby Joyce, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
See you next time.
See you.